at the top of their voice because they'd seen a cow in a field, and this child had never seen a real cow in a field. They'd literally, in their 11 years of life, never left the urban area that they lived in to see a cow. And I thought, wow, that's just incredible. You know, they could literally get a bus ride 10 minutes from where they live and they would see fields full of cows, and they'd never gone in that direction. And I think at that point I realised just how narrow the views and the experiences of some children are, and I think it's incumbent on us to not just raise aspirations but to give experiences that sometimes we just take for granted that children have had those experiences and they just haven't.
Yeah. You used the word profound there. In fact, I noticed in the library you used the word profound quite a lot. And I wondered whether that word reflects the depth of your personally held convictions, and if so, how you would summarise those convictions.
How would I summarise? Yes, it is profound. I hadn't appreciated I'd used it a lot, but yeah. How would I summarise it? I think it's. I think that as an individual, as a profession, as a society, I think it is vying on the criminal to not have an equitable approach to what it is we can offer individuals. I think for us to sit back and say, well, that's then what you so often you hear it. You know, what else can you expect from kids who've been brought up there? What else do you expect from children who are brought up in a place like that? Because I was one of those children. If I'd been dismissed like that, then where would I have been? What might I have not been able to experience in my own life? And I think if there isn't the support from home or the experiences of those that they are living with and amongst to develop that, then it's up to those of us who now have those privileges, and I now consider myself to be privileged in that, to offer that as a privilege, to share that, and to not share it, to dismiss it as, well, that's how it's always going to be, and that's how it is now, and is I'll use the word again, profoundly wrong. And I think we have an obligation, a real obligation as a society and as individuals within that society to actually do something about that. It's for me, it's much more than just getting them a few more GCSE passes. I think if we just equate diminishing gaps to being about GCSE passes, then we've missed a trick, because having those GCSE passes, yes, does open a door. It gives you a bus ticket that takes you on a bit of a longer journey. But if you don't know where that journey's taking you to, if you don't know, what places to stop off at, what places to head to on that journey, who could be your companions on the journey, what experiences you might have, then that's not enough. So I absolutely think that we ought to work on disadvantage to support children to achieve those passes, because it opens doors for them. But you can't just open the door, you've got to show them what's beyond the door, what you're going into, what's possible when you go through that door.
And we'll come back to that in a minute. You mentioned at the start about your faith. So clearly your faith has always been an important part of your life. Could you say more about how that shaped your moral framework in particular? What are the kind of core moral values that you take from your faith that impact your everyday practice as a school leader?
I've got in my office, I don't know whether you've realised, but I've got a side up there which says love, and it's actually it looks like a bit of a trendy sort of I don't know, ornamental sign, but it's actually a quotation from Corinthians, and for me that's what shapes my framework. That's where the start and finish of it all, to love people for who they are, and I don't mean love in a very soppy way or a romantic way. I mean, sometimes I think love's got to be quite tough. But that's... What was your question there again, Rima?
It was about how your faith shapes your moral framework.
So my moral framework is about ensuring that all people feel and experience love. That and that without that as a foundation, and love can come through poverty, it can come through it can be experienced when there's a huge amount of money around, but in both those circumstances life can be devoid of that. And I think my experience now has been that some of the children that actually need surrounding with love are actually coming from quite privileged backgrounds, and they haven't ever understood what it is to share that privilege, and they themselves have a surprisingly narrow view of the world, and that in itself is going to perpetuate problems, I think, in society and about equity. And my moral framework is based around the fact that we all need to, I think, be very clear about our responsibilities to each other, and not just those that we meet in person, but those that we might influence in a wider circle. And then, it's that ripple effect, isn't it, of the stone being thrown in, and how that ripples out across the world, how our moral frame, how we've got responsibilities to people that we never met, but exist in an area of the world that perhaps we don't even know, and what our moral responsibility is to those people. And that might be about the environment they live in as much as their needs as a human being. And so morality it begins with this sort of Christian concept of what to love is, and then how we demonstrate that and live it out in what we do, in our approach to people.
Yeah. So thank you. That's probably partly answered at least my next question, which was, what does the term moral leadership mean to you?
Moral leadership, I mean, you can demonstrate it in a range of different ways. You can define it in a whole range of different ways, and you can look and find all sorts of theoretical definitions of it, some very, very wordy and some very long, but in the end it's about trying to show through the way that you treat others how you feel that you would wish to be treated, and how they should be treating other people. And again, it's that ripple thing. Moral leadership is about being able to share that perspective, but also expecting others to live up to that vision and that ethos of